Now, the COVID pandemic, is neither unprecedented nor a unpredictable black swan event. It is causing massive and still unknowable suffering and continues to surprise us even the three-fourth to till 2021. We are all dreading the third wave. Still, everything is opened up, and we hope and I pray that we do not have to go through the trauma of the third wave. Now, dealing with this is not an easy task, and we all are well aware about it. Amidst all the COVID-19, transformation of the insurance is something which is well known. People have understood the importance of insurance, life and general. What we saw was the insurance industry went through a huge transformation. The acceleration of digitization was 10x. It was fueled by machine learning, AI, and so forth, empowering the policyholders, and this will continue changing the insurance sector for a long period of time. The COVID-19 also brought a major shift in the perception of the insurance among consumers and customers, and also among the delivery modes that the insurance providers had. It changed the way the business in India worked, including the insurance sector, how they operate. Now, here there is no doubt that insurance sector has traditionally been, very resistant to complete digitization. Okay, still relying very heavily on paper-based claims in many areas, or a face-to-face contact. Let me give you an example. Intermediaries, for example, you have to have physical intermediaries to assist claims. But COVID-19 changed everything almost overnight. It had the industry not only having people working effectively from home, but also accelerated the digitization plans. It was no longer, just a few discrete projects which were being automated or digitized. Paper-based processes and in-person meetings was simply not an option for us, right? So everything was digitized. Now, let me give you a small data point. According to PricewaterhouseCoopers 22nd annual global CEO survey, the insurance companies are more receptive to the technological changes in the recent times. Adapting to the changing technological advances in the global scenario is inevitable, and has become very important for the insurance companies to keep up the pace in the VUCA world. With that, I would now like the experts to take over and give their views. In case you have any questions, please feel free to write them in the Q&A section, and I'll be happy to take them in the end. With that, now let's welcome Mr. Ashutosh Bhutkar, BFSI Practice Lead, Wurth India Private Limited. Mr. Bhutkar brings around 18 years of quality experience in the BFSI industry. He has driven major digital transformation initiatives and helped many companies across the globe overcome their digital limitations using innovative strategies, efficient execution, and evolving programs aimed at optimizing customer experience. With that, over to you, Mr. Bhutkar.
Thank you so much, Smriti. I'm just sharing a quick deck. Let me just know once you see that. Can you see, Smriti? Just a quick confirmation before I take off.
Yes.
Great. So good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. I hope you all are doing great. Your loved ones are keeping safe along with you. We heard the ambulance noise when Smriti just took off, and that kind of scared me. But we are overcoming this entire pandemic and coming out of this challenging year. So we welcome you all to this power-packed webinar on accelerating transformation to the next levels, and how Wurth IT India's framework of 4E would help you to enable your digital roadmap and execute a lot of your transformation initiatives. My name is Ashutosh Bhutkar, and I represent the BFSI team here at Wurth IT India, and I lead the practice as well. When we all talk about digitization or transformation, I'm sure there are a lot of initiatives that are already existing and are in place, but a lot of organizations know where they are. They also probably know where they want to reach as well. But the crux of the entire execution lies in the fastest route to reach that point, and that is exactly where our 4E framework really comes in and enables you to really create a complete digital roadmap, plan your actions, and then achieve customer centricity. And I'll take you through how this entire 4E framework would really help you. The most important question a lot of BFSI organizations are trying to answer is, are we operating as a digital financial superstore? And And this entire question is not just on the insurance side, but banks are also equally facing this. Banks are way ahead compared to insurance, but banks, financial services, all of them are trying to be a financial superstore. And why is this happening? That is because by 2025, that's just 4 years from now, it is anticipated that the line between a technology company and a BFSI organization is going to vanish. We are seeing a lot of technical giants emerging and competing with traditional and conventional banks and financial services here. We all know the innovators like Amazon and Netflix, the way they've changed the entire customer experience. They are showing us what a frictionless digital experience can be. So if I just quickly talk about Amazon here, Amazon has a huge user base, right? And they are entering the financial world with that user base. Imagine they are managing payments, they're managing insurance, they're managing your accounts as well, and also offering lending products also. They are attacking the entire financial services world from all the directions, and that is precisely what is making them you know the next competitor to all your in the BFSI industry. If I take another example, which is Lemonade, it's a US based insure tech, I must say. They are coming up with or in fact they have come up with a combination of artificial intelligence and behavioral economics, and they're disrupting the centuries old insurance industry that we know. They are claiming 90 seconds to buy an insurance and just 3 minutes to get paid. And mind you, India is not very far. We have a lot of technical organizations emerging into the financial world and giving a tough competition. So we see tech giants making inroads into finance. Now moving on a step, where we are in India from a BFSI point of view. BFSI, as I see, and we all would agree that they are rapidly adopting, and they are reimagining their entire ecosystem and their processes, and that is all to deliver extraordinary customer experience. Now, if I have to take the examples of Amazon or Netflix, what they are offering is they are capitalizing on the sensory appeal of that customer. And that is exactly what we need to do and brighten the entire banking experience that we offer. Because the customers are now digital savvy, they have access to a lot of information. And that is where they are forcing a lot of banks to be virtual. uh, if we look at, some banks are already taking certain steps. They're delivering responsive and adaptive experiences to the customers. But somewhere the mobile banking experience is still not as better as what we see in the browser based or the laptop based experience that we have. So there is some room to work on the mobile side of the experience as well. And that is exactly where the customers are looking at a seamless and an integrated omni-channel experience. The next normal that now we're going to experience is also pushing the organizations to come up with simpler products, faster to the market, and also personalized for individuals need. uh, we see banking applications, for example, they're very cumbersome, they're very tedious, they ask a lot of questions, and still in some places it is still form based. And that is where the entire BFSI industry is also looking at reinventing these systems and processes at operations and also at customer service level. Now, what a bank needs to do to really achieve the digital goals that they have set for themselves is we need to understand and map the entire customer journey on the digital channels. We need to operate as a digital tech or a technology services company first. We need to shape the entire operations with a digital first approach. And the most important point here is we need to set a digital mindset. That change needs to come at all levels within the enterprise. So, is there a question here? Cool. So now let us take a deep dive into what exactly is this 4E framework. It's a future-looking framework. The four E's, I will take you through all of these E's. The first one is the expectations, which we're seeing that they're always on a rise. When we look at expectations, we people are expecting a lot of convenience. When I say convenience, they want uh, products and services to be accessed anywhere, anytime, and anyhow. Then you need to make the entire access to the information of all these products and services very easy for the customer. Sorry. And if you look at the new generation, the way they are looking at the entire BFSI or even the industries at large, and that is where we need to really collaborate and operate to really meet all of these expectations. The second one is convergence. Uh, Convergence on your channels, on your devices to get an omni-channel experience. So as a customer, I need to have all the information related to my banking transactions, my financial services, or my investments, or the risks that I have covered on a single platform. And that's where I am looking at an experience where I'm converging all of these inputs from different organizations into one single platform. Again, customization, I need products as a customer that are suitable to my own needs and not a generic product. Consistency across all channels. So the information, when I'm talking to a call center person, do that person know me? Does he or she have all the information related to me and updated, and is updated information available with them, so that I don't need to repeat the entire details with the call center? So that is where I'm looking at consistency across the different systems that are there, and collaborating. So I need to buy certain things in a different industry. How do industries really collaborate? And those are the expectations when multiple industries come together to serve a customer, and we'll see in details how these things are also tackled as well. And last but not the least is the control on their finances, on their risks, through a digital tool that is made available to them. Now, moving further, these expectations are giving rise to different sorts of experiences, and that is where BFSI organizations are trying to make experiences much, much better and continuously enhancing. Now, when we talk about the customer experience, now that has become the buzzword. It's a very vast area, and people are trying to do a lot of bring in a lot of initiatives in this space. According to Gartner, 81% of the organizations they are competing on just purely on customer experience, and this is the new marketing battlefield. It helps you to bring customer retention. It helps you to differentiate your brand amongst the peer. So when I speak about experiences, I'm not going to take you through all of these points that you see on the screen, but a key points where if I'm looking at customer self-service, typically we do it with a mobile application. Mobile applications is a need of the hour. So organizations already have invested in mobile apps. Some banks are also looking at re-engineering or launching new mobile applications through low-code platforms. But these mobile applications actually handle a lot of data, massive amounts of data that come into the organizations. What we need to do is we need to leverage artificial intelligence or certain analytics to really bring out the value from this data. And how this is used to really design new products, uh, to really define a lot of new processes or work on the existing processes, to better the experience of the better serve the customer and also improve the customer experience at the end of the day. So the products and services really need to change as we move ahead. Then I'll pick up is the next buzzing thing is the hyper personalization. We talk about personalization, but according to BCG, uh, the annual revenues are getting increased by almost 10% only by using hyper personalization. So what do I mean by this? So standard personalization is you're targeting marketing and sales messages to a set of customers or a segment of customers. But hyper personalization is you're drilling it down to the individual customer itself. So we need to really use a lot of these AI ML solutions to get real time information about a customer. If a person is looking for home loans, we track their Google searches, the contents that they view, or they're looking for a loan process, so they become a very best customer or a potential customer for a loan product. If you know their credit scores, you can typically go with a pre-approved loan for them as well. As we come out of the challenging year, there are a lot of areas that BFSI organizations need to look at and do it right beyond 2021. Now, with this challenging year, there is a lot of financial strain on people. Now, can a bank or an insurance company or an advisor really bring in such services with a 360-degree view to help the customer uh, gain the strong footing that they probably might have lost during this pandemic period. So that's where doing the right things is very crucial in this stage. The second thing is proactive engagement. Can I sell a car from a banking platform? Or can I buy airline tickets from my general insurance company? Now, this is where the industries are going to merge, and that line that I spoke about is going to vanish. The second area, which is also around digitization, so use of digital channels, remote services, where we see the branches are going to vanish. We're going to have virtual branches. Onboarding of customers, your agents, advisors is going to be completely automated. And that is where we've seen, even in India, we have even the unorganized sector, the street vendor, they've adopted the entire digital payment in such a great way. So you have a Beam UPI or a Phone Pay or a Google Pay readily available as a payment mode there, and that has brought in a lot of convenience. So these are the experiences that in the last 2 years we've seen. They're enormous experiences, and that is where we've seen digitization is helping us. But as we speak, this is not very easy, right? The older generations are not able to cope up with this. And what do we need to do as banks or insurance companies or financial services companies with this? Uh, Mind you, they're old, but they're still picking up. They use WhatsApp, they use Facebook, they use Telegram. So, can we double up our efforts and come up with step by step tutorials, certain contents, webinars, and sessions which we can share it with them on their handle? So, ultimately, when they feel comfortable and confident to use these digital channels, that is where their experience is going to be really great. So now we look at these as external drivers which drive customer centricity, but they put in a lot of pressure and change that is required on the internal drivers, which is your ecosystems. Now, when I say ecosystems, uh, we need seamless flow of information, and we know that even within every organization there are siloed systems, and we all are battling with that and trying to get our house in place. But while we are doing this, we also should not ignore the information that is available outside the entity, the enterprise, and coming in from your peers or coming in from different industries also. And that is exactly where the entire ecosystem or the triangle of ecosystems plays a crucial role. Where at one node you see clients where you're not just addressing their uh, the needs that are expressed, but also the needs that they're planning, the goals which have financial impact on them. And this can be stitched with the second node, which you see as data. There is humongous data that is generated when people are interacting with such applications or they're on the internet. So there's a human machine interaction giving you this data. Can we really leverage this data to drive a lot of these external drivers? Exactly, we can do that with a lot of technology that is currently available. And the third component is your interconnected goods and services. Here I take another example, like the can I buy a car in a bank, where that's the same example. But if you see, there is an organization, MG is moving very fast in this. They're not talking about the new car, but they're talking about technology that you get. They're talking about a vehicle digital passport, which can be used to really lower the premiums or plan the premiums accordingly, and also use this information to show the entire service history and make your resale value of your car much much better than what it could be without a digital passport. And that is where we are talking about industries merging. Now they are now talking with a lot of insurance companies where they can offer this data and then plan the premiums accordingly. And that's where a lot of industries are merging, and that's the ecosystem impact that we're going to see and we're going to have in the near future. Now, with all this, we really need to come up, we need to bring in our efficiencies, and that is only achieved through uh, evolving our processes that we have in the organizations. So, people are tackling this by redesigning their processes, managing the incoming demand. So, either you eliminate certain tasks, you migrate certain channels onto different digital platforms, or you redesign the entire operations as well. The second area where people are trying to reduce is the manual work, and this is done through a lot of digitization and automation. There are organizations who have adopted some of these, something like OCR. People have adopted OCR. People are talking about NLP now. People are using a lot of chat bots and smart workflows. That's where you are trying to reduce a lot of manual work. The third area is how can you enable your sales operations and the services teams, and that is through advanced analytics. People are looking at initiatives on your artificial intelligence, or cognitive solutions or machine learning algorithms, or even descriptive, predictive, and prescriptive analytics people are talking about to really enable these teams. And last is to increase the manual productivity, where you're optimizing the workforce. This could be achieved by either you are outsourcing certain activities and you're focusing only on the core part of your business, or you're centralizing certain processes which were probably decentralized. And that is where people are talking about hyper automation these days, where it is driving a lot of efficiency and accuracy. Sorry. Now, this is then giving inputs to your expectations. Right now, these expectations were set, mapped, but then the expectations will always increase, and that is where the next loop of transformation will begin. And through 4E framework, this is where you can continuously achieve the customer centricity, and that is supported through your rapid digitization. Now, having looked at the 4E framework, how do you use this framework in your organization? So typically, you need a partner that can engage with you at all three levels, be it at a consultancy level, be it at a technology level, or at a service level. And they need to come in and do the due diligence, map your entire external drivers, and map it to your business strategy that you're currently driving, and then look at your internal drivers to create a seamless flow of integrated ecosystems, or seamless ecosystems, and then redefine certain processes, make them leaner, make them better. This is where you could really look at a partner. Before I conclude, I think we feel the 4Es are the strong pillars for any organization in the BFSI world to really move ahead and grow to the next levels. Hope this gave you some insights, and I appreciate your time and staying with me for this entire presentation. Thank you so much, and happy innovating with no limits.
Thank you, Mr. Bhutkar. That's wonderful presentation. You spoke about the always increasing expectations, enhancing experiences, integrated ecosystems, and the continuously improving efficiency. Thank you so much, enlightening us for this. So now let's move into the discussion, where I'm joined with an esteemed and an expert panel comprising of Ravishankar Pingali, CEO and Head of Digital, Wurth India, Mr. Goutam Datta, Chief Information and Digital Officer, Bajaj Allianz Life, and Mr. KV Dipu, President, Head Operations, Community and Customer Services, Bajaj Allianz General Insurance. A few words about them. Mr. Pingali is an innovative strategic thought leader with 23 plus years of experience in delivering technology differentiated solutions to global enterprises. An excellent track record of leading large transformation initiatives for his customers, partners, leveraging cutting edge technologies. Mr. Datta has more than 20 years of experience in strategizing, spearheading large-scale technology operations, and being in the journey of evolution from traditional business processes to customer experience-centric processes through digital implementations. And Mr. Dipu is a global award-winning digital transformation and an innovation leader. I welcome all of you to this discussion and request all of you to have your videos on. I hope all of you are safe.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
So without much ado, let me move in straight to the conversation. I would start with you, Mr. Datta. I want to ask, I spoke about the COVID-19 pandemic, and I think everybody has been speaking about it. And unfortunately, we want to stop talking about it. We can't. Now, this pandemic has brought a major shift in the perception of insurance among the consumers and the delivery modes by the insurance providers. How have you adopted to this change?
Well, thanks for having me here, and nice to see Dipu and others here. This is the only occasion where we can kind of meet. So thanks for arranging that also. Yes, COVID is an unfortunate, at the same time very interesting phenomenon. Interesting in a way that many of us would agree that it had been a case that we have a solution for various activities for last couple of years, but was not adopted to that extent, was not matured to that extent. During COVID, we started value for all of those solutions. And also, there was a wide thought within tech and tech allied department that the solution all works to all scenarios. Okay. I think both sides, the rest of the organization, I'm first talking about the inward part of it, then we'll talk about the customer and partners also. So during this COVID, I remember when March 23rd, 2020 happened. We suddenly, there is one part of us, we thought we have all the solutions, no problem. We will be able to manage it. Bajaj Allianz Life happened to be one of those financial institutes which could manage it very, very fast. But still, there were enough number of gaps. And over next couple of weeks, the team worked tremendously along with the business teams and others and ensured that our solutions are patched up to that extent that it is having enough capacity. It is explained well to last users, and there are some maturity gaps, and those are also done with. That's the bare minimum that we could do at that point in time, and we did that. And our business was, with the core functions up and running in 2 days, and the overall functions were up and running in next 7 days. And when I'm saying up and running, it is including our call centers, including our investment functions, including our underwriting functions, all of that. Okay. But if you talk, this is where the expectations were met. But if you look back to Ashutosh's slide, you will see there is something called experience and efficiency comes into play. That's where we started focusing on in the first 3 to 4 weeks. And whenever we talk about experience and efficiency, there is that customer and partner and internal delivery team comes into play. And we are very happy to tell you that very early in time, we understood that this lack of proximity in doing business deal is here to stay for a long time. So we kind of, then built up a very contextual innovation to make sure that all our digital assets, particularly those which are most frequently used, including app, insurance, onboarding app, and our portals, are all geared up with some kind of screen sharing mechanism, without getting into any data security, without getting into any data, leakage kind of a situation. And that helped us tremendously in terms of driving adoption across various segments. That's for, my answer one. My answer two is, during this time, we have seen extreme adoption, willingness to adopt within the organization across the customer segments. And we are very delighted to see that the young segment of customers were always digitally savvy. But 35 to 55 is the segment where we saw tremendous growth in adopting digital solutions that we have offered. That also helped. The third one was piggybacking on things like WhatsApp. Okay. Piggybacking on a medium which is well accepted, not because of COVID, much prior COVID, and extend your solutions through them. Using AI, ML to ensure your call centers becomes far more efficient than than it is possible humanly, by introducing bots and all of that. So all these three, broad measurement looks like took us through. We don't want to claim that we are done and dusted on that. We are still learning, still doing, certain bit of enhancement and maturity across all our portfolios to get a little better experience and to make it a little more efficient.
BFSI was always into digitization, but I think the pandemic accelerated.
Yeah, it's kind of 4 to 5 years of work happened in 1 year. That's very
Mr.
true.
Dipu, what was your thoughts on this?
I think Gautam, covered, a great deal of the landscape. So let me just, try and add, maybe, some other dimensions. I think, it's been 18 months now. So we've seen that, everybody's focused on, digitizing the landscape, including the ones, who had to play catch up, while some players were already down that path, prior to the pandemic. I think now what is happening is, apart from just digital, I think there's also a focus on, how do you humanize it? Because people have got used to, bots, but how do you bring in, the human angle? Because when customers call you up, they don't call you up during their good times, right? They call you up when they need empathy or a healing touch. So I think whether it's a combination of man and machine, or whether it's about, getting bots to mimic human beings, I think that's one area people are focused on. The second is largely digital assets are offered in English. But if you want to amplify your reach, right, how do you ensure that, you enter every nook and corner of India? Therefore, I think, multilingual, is also, clear focus area. For example, we launched an app exclusively in Indian languages, for farmers, for crop insurance, and they just loved it. The offtake was very high and even the rating was very high. Thirdly, just as today we are in webinars, right? We're not in seminars, right? It's because we need to practice social distancing, and therefore, we need to ensure that, everything is touchless. Therefore, even from a customer perspective, the user interfaces or the user interactions, have to be touchless, because you can't meet people, you can't shake hands, you can't exchange paper. At least you try to discourage that. So therefore, voice will play a big role, in terms of, having this. So for instance, when customers walk into our branches, we have QR codes. They just scan them and then they get their request fulfilled. And similarly, we were also able to integrate our bot with Alexa and Google Assistant. So which means even by deploying voice, you could have voice-based servicing. So I think these three dimensions, multilingual, the use of voice, and the first point that I made about humanizing the digital, I think these are three trends, which are in vogue right now.
So what you said, humanizing the digital. I mean, you're very clear focus on giving the experience of, a physical meeting or anything, but you're very clear on, yes, the experience has to be clearly digital, but I'm trying to bridge the gap between a human and digital. Thank you so much for this. So moving to Mr. Pingali, what has COVID, how has COVID, there have been a lot of impacts on technology and data. So what have been some of the impacts, and what is the insurance next demanding?
Okay, I think firstly, let me start saying insurance companies in particular have really clearly weathered this crisis exceptionally well, right? And I kind of concur with both Goutam and Dipu. I think the investments that they have made, or many companies made across the globe, was significantly impactful in trying to mitigate the risk that one would have had otherwise, right? I think having said that, it's also brought out some vulnerabilities or limitations, which probably got an opportunity for people to look at and probably accelerate the rate of change thereafter, right? I think it's been an eye-opener in many ways for everybody of them. And I think I bring in the customer perspective just as a data point, because I think there's a surveys and everything else. And from the data that it shows, right, about 41% of the consumers say that they will probably switch providers, predominantly because they don't have digital channels or capabilities to be able to interact with, because COVID did not allow any in-person communication or interactions. And that probably put extreme pressure on, I think that the ball is back in court of most of these companies. And likewise, they said 15% say, because there aren't many situations where I'm able to interact or interface with and get my issues resolved, I think the customer service took a hit in some time. I think what all this says is, I think for the insurance next, I think technology adoption is going to only accelerate. And like Goutam and Dipu said, it's only going to get better and better from here. And I think most importantly, I would touch upon one thing. I always like this word, integrated user experience. When we say integrated, I think it's not just a phrase or a term. I think it truly believes, we have to really believe, because customer is expecting today the interface between them are right from a policy, from the quotation to all the way to services, right? I think, and more importantly, from various channels that we have available today. We talked about WhatsApp, we talked about a bot, we talked about multiple other ways a customer can be serviced, right? I think they expect to be more pampered, and this is becoming even more prominent with the Gen Z or the digital native, as they call it, right? Because they are very, very demanding when it comes to what they expect from the providers, and quite likely so, right? And that's where I think I see the shift dramatically moving towards more technology adoption and a more complete way, rather than just trying to address one or two problems which are more on the superficial level and keeping a bulk of it for things to process subsequently. I think it is going to bring in a lot of, if I may quote, I think I was reading an article where people are saying it's probably going to move from a detect and repair kind of industry to predict and prevent, right? So I think that is the level of readiness that I think in future the carriers will have to start moving towards, right? And that's a lot of work, and technology certainly is at our disposal. Now it's a matter of putting them all together.
So, I always say that, digitization and adoption of technologies, especially for the BFSI industry, was a good to have. And now, thanks to if you see the positivity of the pandemic, some positivity in the pandemic, it's a must have now for, every organization. So technology adoption is, yes, a necessity which has to be there. You spoke about customer centricity very clearly. So I would want to ask you, Mr. Dipu, how can insurers adopt a more customer-centric approach using technology rather than focusing on?
Not hear you very clearly, Smriti, the last part.
I said, how can insurers focus on using technology rather than just focus on selling products?
I think, that's, clearly, part of the entire landscape today, because when you look at what COVID did, since we're talking about COVID, right, when everybody had to work from home and give access to people, to software, which they could not earlier access from home, by ensuring security, right? I think everybody just, got used to this digital way of not just working, but, living. And therefore, the entire servicing is digital, right? When contact centers were shut down, technology was used to service customers, whether it's apps or portals or chatbots, right? These are the digital assets that firms have leveraged to service customers. Similarly, in terms of selling, you had to do contactless sales, right? Because you could not go and physically meet people. So you have to recalibrate your entire approach, from in-person meetings to remote selling. And coming to servicing, just to give a couple of examples, let's say you crashed your car. Now, earlier, if you crashed your car, you would have to call up the insurance company. They would send an inspector, somebody would inspect the car and then submit his report, and the whole process kicks in. Now, by using technology, you don't have to do that. The customer has to just click photographs and upload them using the mobile app. There's an AI engine which kicks in, and up to certain amounts, it will basically assess the images and convey the amount back to the customer. And then, the customer gives his consent and the amount is transferred. So what used to take days earlier, now happens in a matter of, minutes. Similarly, if you look at the way, firms have leveraged, Internet of Things, right? Earlier, you would just maybe buy a car insurance policy. But now if you buy, telematics, whereby you have a device in the car, it can give you vehicle diagnostics. And we offer, for example, a feature called geofencing. In geofencing, what you can do once you have a device in the car, you can basically mark the traditional routes, that your car will go on. And then if you have somebody taking the car off on a third route, you get an automatic alert. So, there are plenty of use cases, which one can share, whereby, firms have leveraged digitization and technology to notch up customer experience. This kind of experience is not possible had technology not been leveraged.
Great, sir. So, Mr. Datta, I would want to ask you, now, how can companies, specifically insurance companies, create a truly compelling customer experience?
Well, customer experience as a subject is not something new. It is that our focus on customer experience has now kind of renewed in many ways. And to a great extent, we are also trying to mimic the customer experience through a digital medium. That's where the whole interesting part starts. Because when I am talking to you, I can understand what you're saying. I can assess your body language, whether you're agreeing or not agreeing. And subsequently, the discussion can go ahead. Whether it's an investment discussion or something else, it can be very nicely orchestrated. Now, when the same experience you wish to give it to a customer digitally, and a little bit, with a little bit of artificially intelligent, so to say, then the whole aspect becomes far more interesting. In case of BALIC, I just wanted to compare and make it very simple. Compare pre-COVID era pre-COVID era, if I had to have a discussion with you about investment, we would probably visit you at your home or maybe nearby cafe and have a cup of coffee and have an investment discussion. And over 2 or 3 such discussions, we might actually get into a deal, because life insurance is a long term, so you take time to decide upon all of that. So there are lots of interactions. Now, what happens in these interactions? You develop some bit of trust to the brand, some bit of transparency to the way the business happens in this brand, and your understanding about the product becomes a little better. That's fundamentally what happens, right? Now, when you do the same thing digitally, you are not able to see what I'm entering in my screen. Finally, that's how the transaction happens. You are not able to see whatever I am saying. Is it actually the same investment that the product actually offers? How do I see it? So that's, we understood at the very beginning that our primary constraint is becoming, we are not able to reach out with our offer, the context in which we used to reach out to our customer. That's where we started working on how do I extend my screen to my customer in a way that he could be with me on call and see and do the self verification of every data that's been entered. That's one way of building the trust and transparency across. Second point, which Dipu also said, is very important. How can you talk in the same language that the customer talks or understands? That's extremely important, particularly in India. So when you reach out to our call center and start talking in Hindi, maybe our, the voice bot would actually respond to you in Hindi. But particularly if you see, that's the easy part of it. Particularly if you see most of our genuine discussions, they are Hindi, English mixed, right? Some part of your phrase is English and some part of your phrase is always Hindi. Okay, that's the broader aspect, and that's where it becomes really interesting. Hence, we build that bit. When you mix two predominant language, how the bot would translate it, understand the intent, and respond to it. That's the second part of it. So you will experience it when you interact with us on our call center or our WhatsApp bot, exactly the same. It understands through NLP at every end, through AI at every end, to understand what is the intent. You at times say EMI, but you actually meant premium, right? Now, these are the small nuances that we normally do. Unless we mimic that in a digital interface, the experience would always be something left out.
I love the part, sorry to interrupt, Marina, I want to say, I love the part that you said, when you say EMI, but you say EMI and you mean premiums. That has to
be. There are lots of those. When you go deep into this subject, you would understand when you talk about experience, it is not only about a beautiful interface. It is about an interface which makes things easy, which makes things understandable by you. The third bit, which I think is extremely important, is conversational. You trust a brand when the brand converses with you. It is not that you asked something, the brand replied. You did something and the brand responded. It's the brand converse, which means the brand interacts with you like I am interacting with you. Now, when I'm interacting with you, I'm probably giving you some information. I'm also requesting for some information, also suggesting, also expressing, I agree, I do not agree. There could be something else. So when you converse with our digital assets, particularly our bots, which are faceless in many ways, you would find they are conversing. And in the mode of conversation, it's not that we are 100% correct every time. It's not possible because it's something AI running at the back. It is getting trained automatically. It is kind of picking up those nuances that I just talked about. EMI equal to premium, pay equal to payment, pay equal to also renewal in some other cases, who has a policy which is about to get renewed. The pay that he is saying is not actually meaning payment he want to make. He's actually asking about his renewal amount. So all of that is a context that you have to build and then get into a conversation. So we focused on these things. We focused on how do we build transparency? How do we build trust? How do I make sure that whatever I am doing is absolutely visible and controllable by the end user, by the customer? That's one. Second, while you go to multilingual, okay, the problem is not with multilingual only. Problem is, as a human, you go to any state, you would have 2 or 3 languages intermixed to have a pleasant conversation. We can all talk in Hindi or English or Bangla or whatever language, but it is always pleasant when you mix all of that. That's how Indians are. And third is, you don't get into a question answer mode, which is very dry, digital, cut. You get into conversation, which is very mixed up, very warm. So we focused on these 3 fundamentals, and whatever asset we focused on built during this time is definitely have a maturity around these 3 blocks.
What you said, Mr. Bhutkar already covered. Experiences have to be always enhancing.
Yes.
Mr. Pingali, I would want to ask you, even the physical. One second. We are talking about experience here. So what are the new innovations or use cases that have emerged, to enable digital experiences that are powered by, we talk about AI, ML, IoT, or something else?
Okay, I think Dipu and Mr. Goutam already mentioned about it. I think I take the cue from them. And it's that today in the digital space, the moment we move everything to a system, I think what is happening is we have no trace of data, right? I think data is everywhere from various streams, channels, and various particular mediums. What is important now is to bring in that cognitive capability to be able to interpret and make best use of it, to bring in that human-like behavior or the response back to the customer. I think, right? I think particularly when I talk about general insurance, I think there is tremendous amount of data lying there by virtue of the connected devices. People are talking about pay by use, the first loss of, the first notification of after loss and stuff like that. A lot is already in play. I think, quite honestly, underwriting and pricing is where I believe a lot of work will happen in future. That's what I would see happening, because today, if you see the entire life cycle, I think underwriting is using AI or ML to an extent, but it's not fully there yet. It's been just been adopted in bits and pieces. And then I think as the industry matures and the knowledge and the amount of data and experience keeps increasing, I think I'm sure we'll see much more use cases coming out wherein all this data can be very well comprehended to be able to come up with more product categories and also potentially dynamic pricing to a large extent wherever it's applicable and suitable. I think, and this is certainly more intensive in the insurance space, and that's something which I see down the line, apart from certainly making the overall experience smoother and better when it comes to interactions with the customer. I think a lot of profiling and and contextual product recommendations and stuff will start coming in. I think that is still there to an extent, but I think that I see becoming much more prominent in the future.
So, that's what Mr. Bhutkar also, said when he spoke about the 4 E's, experience plus rapid digitization is the core. So, Mr. Dipu, I would want to ask you, we spoke about experience, we spoke about the expectations of customers. When you spoke up, we speak about integrated ecosystem, given that the physical act of selling has been, affected. How do these digital technologies, get implemented across domains such as customer engagement, operational efficiency, risk management, and everything else?
So Smriti, if you look at the whole landscape of a firm, right? A lot of discussions typically happen around customer-facing technologies, right? Because we speak about apps and bots because that's what customers experience. But then when you look at firms, it's something like a swan, right? It moves very gracefully on the water, but when you see it below the water, it's paddling away furiously, right? So there's a lot of work which happens, also at the back end. So for example, if you look at again, when you look at customer facing assets, right, the middleware, the customer relationship management, that plays a very critical role because it is a bridge between the various customer facing assets and the core system that, the firm has, because you want to offer a consistent omni-channel experience to customers. So clearly, firms have invested in CRM because it needs to pull in feed from various assets, whether it's bots, apps, portals, call center, email, and the various methods by which customers enter the firm, and then ensure that it talks to the core and then enables the associate to give a real-time response back to customers. So that is one. And then the core platform itself, I think we have all heard about the cloud, right? How firms have been able to move to the cloud, because today the entire footprint of customers is digital. So how do you ensure that you are able to ingest all this data? And while on the one hand, we use the firm, we use the word data, to cover various forms of information, it can be very complex because you have handwritten forms, you have printed forms, you have data coming in through soft formats, you have voice, you have text, you have images, you have video, right? How do you ingest all of this, and then give, real-time servicing to customers, right? I think the firms have to, grapple with all this data, convert it into information, and then of course, churn the output out in real, on a real-time basis. So I think that again, is an area where firms have invested a lot of effort, has gone into analytics and business intelligence, advanced analytics, right? So on and so forth. So for example, when we moved to the cloud, we were able to move from siloed data marts to a single data lake. So, that's one. And then when you come to the operational bit, because you also spoke about operations, right? Again, it's a combination of man and machine. So how have we leveraged, for example, RPA, right? To ensure that, bots are able to give you that consistency, across, various aspects of the landscape, whether it's invoice processing, whether it's carrying out some simple tasks, right? So on and so forth. And then underlying all of this again, when we talk about cybersecurity, right? It's also about leveraging AI and ML to ensure that, they can add value from a cybersecurity perspective, right? Because you can ensure that, you leverage it to detect patterns, including in the area of frauds, right? Because today it's all digital, like we said. So it's customer facing assets, it's your CRM, it's your core, it's cloud, it's data management, it's pattern analytics, and it's AI and ML, at various aspects. So I think today there's a lot that firms do, and all this complex engineering at the back end ensures that the UI UX, is very simple.
The ecosystem is, yes, is very huge, and it has to be integrated finally to give the kind of the customer experience that, you as a company would want to, give the customers. So, I want to ask you one more question. How do you prioritize digitization in an organization? Or, how do you identify the pain points? Let me put it in another way.
So it's very simple, Smriti. We've been in business for 20 years. It always starts with the customer, right? It starts with the customer, it continues with the customer, it ends with the customer. So we obviously, get plenty of feedback from our customers because we've been in business for 20 years. And also insurance is a distribution-led business. So we also have, partners, sharing feedback with us. So that is, feedback which comes your way just by virtue of being in business. The other is we also proactively go out and, measure what customer experience is by using NPS, by doing focus group discussions. So based on customer, feedback, right? We just, figure out what are the areas to fix. Then the other is, to stay ahead of the game. We also keep monitoring, what are the trends in, in the industry. And an important point there, Smriti, is, because customer assets, whether it's apps and bots and portals, they're all industry agnostic. We also have to ensure that, we keep an eye on what's happening in other industries. It's not just insurance industry. Because the customer is not going to compare his experience of our mobile app, the best that he has seen in insurance. He's going to compare that with the best that he has seen across industries. So you keep an eye on, trends asset-wise across industries. You look at, the feedback which comes your way from customers and partners proactively, and of course, what comes by way of being in business. Then when you put all of it out there, I think the landscape is very clear, and then you just prioritize that for maximum impact. So it's as simple as that.
I think a very good, amazing key takeaway for all, the listeners are, don't just look at your industry, look at every other industry. In fact, identifying their pain points could, be at your advantage, and, you could change. So great answer. So, so Mr. Pingali, I would want to ask you, what are some of the new innovations and implementations which are there in the emerging tech, which one needs to brace for a more optimistic picture, or would you want to share any use cases?
I think I'll put it this way, right? Because more than ever, what is most important right now for every organization is to get ready to be able to respond to the needs of the industry or at a fast clip, right? I think they have been doing it for a long time, but I think now the dynamism and the speed of change is so high that I think most importantly, I would say get the ecosystem right or get the platform right? I think from that standpoint, because everything else depends on that. Because today we have the option of wanting to tie up with various systems or third parties, maybe insurtechs or aggregators or multiple other things don't try to do everything together. What is going to be important is get the foundation right, be very sure which area are going to scale which way. I think there could be some way by virtue of partnership, by acquisition, by going with a co-source model, right? So I think there are various functions where you could probably leverage this. And there are certainly, I think building a cohesive ecosystem is the name of the game to me, because not everybody cannot do everything all by themselves. And more so because things have to change and dynamically adapt to the business needs. And one has to believe that the new generation of users, when I say users, employees and customers alike, are very demanding, and expectations are very high when it comes to the technology adoption and the ease of use, right? With that in play, I think we need to be very, very cognizant, trying to create everything all in-house. There has to be an element of partnerships and co-development and building the ecosystem and stuff like that. I think that's the key for moving ahead at a pace that one would like to.
I'm having such amazing key takeaways from each of you speakers. I would like to harp on the stress on the point that you said. When you talk about customer experience, you talk about internal stakeholders as well as the external stakeholders, and just not the customers. And right. I also truly believe that if you set a good example, if you can make your internal stakeholders take care of them as good as you take care of the customers, I think the customers are at the advantage, that they will be taken much better care of. So yeah, amazing. So Mr. Datta, I would want to ask you, how do you identify the pain points in the organization for digitization?
Well, I think you raised a very important point. During COVID, it's something new, something new normal for my employees, and for my customers and for my partners. I think as an organization, we were first very, very sensitive about our employees, because it's a new normal. What they need is a working computing device, network, ability to talk, ability to connect, training around it. So those are the first maybe 7-10 days which we worked on pan-India to make sure that they are online. Now, once that was done, then we got into look into, from a customer and partner's point of view, what are the core things that are not working. Because it's a new normal. You have to understand the things that we were using for years. It is getting used at a completely new context. There's not a single document that you can go and collect. There's not a single instant where you can take a offline payment. 100% has to be online. India was never been like that. No business whatsoever was ever been like that. So there is huge delta that came up to us, in a way that when we interact with customer through phone calls or through mediums like this, we understood that there are areas. We ensured that first few quarters, our completely senior management is in communicate. And communicate does not mean we speak. Communicate means we also listen. So we did tremendous number of sessions, almost like a routine sessions with our customers, with our partners, with our employees, to pick up those nuances which often creates a little bit of heartburn across these 3 segments, and gone back and work on that. So that communicate strategy worked nicely for us. And the way we communicated is whatever came to our way. If it is call, it is call. If it is like a MS Teams, which is the corporate communication tool for us, MS Teams, or FGD over some other tool like Google Meet or Zoom, we did that. But from each communication, our agenda was clearly what is breaking up. In case you have to do complete transactions, be that onboarding, be that servicing, be that supporting a partner, what is breaking up? If anything is breaking up anywhere, if it is our piece of code or piece of process, we go fix. If it is our partner's piece of code and piece of processes, we go and fix that too. So we focused on that, and I think it gave us very nice dividend.
Great, sir. Yeah. So, Mr. Pingali, adding to what Mr. Datta said and Mr. Dipu said, customer centricity and digitization are the core. How does one strike a fine balance, with achieving digitization and efficient operations?
Well, I look at it as digitization is a means to ensure customer centricity in one way, not necessarily the only way, right? I think I won't say they are complementing each other. The other one brings about the other, right? I think digitization is a new norm, and I think it's already in play, and we have to continue to build it, right? And there is a tremendous amount of opportunity. In fact, a lot of work is happening in terms of making sure the operational efficiencies are up or rather bettered every year, or in fact every quarter. I think there is a lot of work happening in the automation space. I think we talked about process automation, we talked about hyper automation, we talked about multiple different things. And people are redefining, rethinking the entire customer service model itself. And we already heard Mr. Dipu and Mr. Goutam say about the bot and how well the bot can certainly mimic what a human interface is all about, right? I think these are all working in tandem, to be honest. And that's where I think that is what is generating this technology adoption, which ARCA digitization, as I call it, is what is leading to better customer centricity, or rather helping customer experience being improved, right? And I think, like I said, from physical to digital interactions, I think a lot of investments and work has been done in trying to even move the physical document collection process completely offline, or rather, to an online strategy where we're talking scanning documents, processing it through a CR and all these processes, and still able to service the customers or sell to the customers. Almost, the interface with humans cannot be completely eliminated. I think a lot of work has been done or continues to happen when it comes to bringing that flavor in there. I think customer centricity is the cornerstone of everything that everybody does, and it will remain so. And I think technology continues to be at our disposal. And I'm sure with each passing day, the options are much more to be able to cater to that. Yeah. Right from, again, not just for doing new things, also making the existing thing more efficient.
So, sir, customer, as and I think all your conversations till now, customer centricity is the core of everything that you do. Even the 4E network, the framework that you all have, the expectation, the experiences, the ecosystem, or the efficiency that you all talk about. Even with that, when Mr. Bhutkar spoke about always increasing, enhancing, everything was related to the customer and the centricity, and not going around any. So, anything last few words that you want to say on the 4E framework for our viewers?
I think certainly yes. I think if you closely looked at the follow to the slides and presentation, I think there is no one sequence of doing things. It's a cyclic process, right? That the outcome being we need to make sure the end customer, again, I say quote in quotes, employees of the carriers or the companies and the end customers, both alike, have to be at the center of our thought. And I think we need to be making this incremental progressions on each of these pillars, as I say. And I think they'll always be complementing each other, right? I think it will never be a situation where we'll build an ecosystem in isolation, which is not either catering to enhancing the experience or bringing in efficiencies or creating the whole efficiencies itself, right? Or the experience and expectations itself, right? I think it's always going to be moving in tandem. And I think it's very important if you are able to recall this 4-3A framework as the way it was depicted. I think that will always keep us in a good reckoning, I would say, right? Give us the right spirit, and I think we'll always prioritize, invest, and improve in areas where we need to, without moving any of these 4 pillars ahead. Yeah, I think that's my last statement, and I think I would like to ask Mr. Goutam if he has any closing comments that he would like to share with us.
Hi, Ravi. Yeah, there are a couple of things that comes to my mind as an important. 4E is interesting. I don't think anyone with sane mind can deny any of the 4E components. However, to my mind, you have to deal with expectation. You have to build experience. You have to be efficient. All of that are required.
Right.
And if you scan across the ecosystem, you would have thousands of providers who are providing you solutions.
Right.
And you would have few thousands, maybe multiple of tens or 100,000s of customers and partners who is expecting things. Okay. Now, this is reality, and we would all of us would have a limited capacity to focus on. So it is extremely important to first remain contextual. It is extremely important to understand which one is real problem and will solve. If you bring a solution, real contextual solution will solve large enough problem for the business, for the brand. That's important. All of the solutions and requirement will have some degree of expectation meeting, some bit of experience it is enhancing and all of that. But top 3, top 4 is where importance is when you have limited capability to build on. So that's what we have been focused on. So 4E is extremely important. 4E is undeniable. But at the same time, how smart you are in terms of remaining contextual in your picking up the tasks is where the game is.
Absolutely.
Great. Thank you so much, Mr. Datta. Thank you, Mr. Pingali. Thank you, Mr. Bhutkar, for this amazing discussion and talking about the 4E framework and how we can garner the best benefits to enhance customer centricity and experience. So thank you all of us. On behalf of Dynamic CIO and Wurth IT, I would like to thank all of you for your time and request you to fill in the feedback form, which will come at the exit. Thank you so much. Namaste.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure being here. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Bye.